Epic War 5 is my favourite entry in this series. Its fast-paced gameplay and many complicated mechanics turn the game to 100 in the killing of enemies, but it's also infamously easy, hosting some of the cheesiest bugs in the entire franchise, and the fact that the hero versus hero feature was counterintuitive. Despite this, there is a man who was brave enough to work around these problems, and created a mod so influential, it really exposed how flawed this game is. This is the story of Untitled Polemo. Untitled Polemo, referred to as PP on Discord, is a PhD graduate in theoretical physics who joined the Epic War server in April 2024. He watched some garbage videos on Epic War modding and had seen enough to try his hand at reworking the games. Although his programming knowledge was very minimal and he hadn't been exposed to many of the community's creations, PP had enough of a blueprint to release version 1 of the Hell Rising mod. Little did he know is that he created a mess so beautiful, it would change the way that we all saw Epic War 5 forever. In the Hell Rising mod, the player uses a new hero, Cannibal the Great, a demon imp with a Lord of Hell sword. What makes Cannibal so well designed is that he starts off with high HP but low resistance to attacks, making him a glass cannon in early game, and then a titan worth using in the middle to late game. Additionally, his long sword gives him a slight range boost, meaning that he's out of the firing line, increasing his survivability. To add icing on the cake, our hero would unlock a new ability when the campaign was finished. And even though the portal building isn't the most useful thing in the extra and trial levels, the ability to upgrade your hero through checkpoints, as well as through upgrade points, is absolute genius in addressing the problem of hero balance. Now let's look at the most complicated problem about Epic War 5, the difficulty. Right off the bat, PP presents us with 3 difficulties on how we can play his mod. Make no mistake that no matter how you play this mod, it is challenging, with even the early game taking a few attempts. Whilst of course Epic War 5's engine rewards a specific meta of strategies, playing through the mod was engaging as you had to think on your feet in every level in the game. Whether that was micromanaging your army or adjusting your team to suit the needs of the stage, the mod in more ways than one tried to tackle the problem of difficulty. And through advancing in the mod, the community unanimously praised the progressive risk and the progressive reward, despite the added challenges in Hell Rising. For perspective, in vanilla Epic War 5, the Dwarf Defenders, who are Vigoroth the Red's starting troops, were unlocked after Extra 4. Totally out of the ballpark of when they would be useful. In contrast, the Tauros Oxen, who is better in almost every stat, are simply unlocked by winning the 3rd level, compared to Hell Rising mod, where every unit is unlocked at a time where they could still be useful. This diversifies your game. The players are able to use troops they otherwise weren't able to in the original, simply because they weren't unlocked at a proper time. On that topic though, PP told me that one of his goals for the mod was to allow the player to use all of the troops available, as it is a shame that the enemy has access to units that the player can never use. Units like the Imperfect Demon, Fallen Angel, and Undead Tiger are accessible to the player and are also very useful in many of the trial stages. But my personal favourite is, without a shadow of a doubt, the Goblin Helpers, also referred to as the Power Go Goblins. PP programmed them as 5 troops in one unit, which also respawn as they die, so you don't need to exhaust all 5 of them in order for them to be ready for battle. It's not the only troop that has this advantage, but I don't want to spoil everything. You can play the mod for yourself. So far we've spoken about how Untitled Polemo added new features to Epic War 5 that can influence the remakes, such as level designing in a way that was tough, but gave you the option to use all the units, including your hero, and an upgrade system that rewards the players as you go. However, None of this came easy, as PP needed to learn from a previous version of the mod. It is worth noting that Epic War 5 had a lot of bugs and oversights that the Hell Rising mod had to rectify. Some of which were pretty easy, like how block and strong resisting troops each get dealt the same amount of damage. But one exploit that PP was worried could ruin his mod was the fog glitch. When the player places a building in front of all of your units, the game thinks that you have progressed with the level and starts to reveal more of the map. This makes the game easier, as you can now cast spells to troops that the game never intended you to fight yet. With the beta testing of the mod, many of the levels suffered a difficulty drop to the point of incompetent quality as a result of players being able to abuse this glitch. So Untitled Polemo took a huge risk by trying to fix this. Now, you can't command your army past the point at which you've reached with your units, a bit like rugby rules. This mechanic admittedly took a while for players to get adjusted to. Not only can we not call enemy troops by cheesing spells, but micromanaging units will also take time to get used to, encouraging people to become more skilled at Epic War. PP also learned from the first draft of his mod to add never seen before features to the 5th entry to the franchise. I mentioned before how PP will give you upgrades for completing certain parts of the game, but big units themselves get a 20% boost in both HP and attack in addition to the upgrade purchased by the player, giving the player a significant boost when killing bosses, because trust me, we're gonna need it. PP also buffed all of the bosses and made certain levels impossible to beat without the completion of a previous. If you know, you know. The dev of Hell Rising mod was not afraid to innovate, making pragmatic decisions for the sake of fresh perspective, difficulty increase, or even a boost to the lore. But there's also things I really don't like about this mod, such as a bit of a bittersweet reality. It exposed Epic War 5. Many of the problems I'm about to discuss are complex limitations that the 5th game possesses, to the point where I'm debating making an entire video on retrospect in Epic War 5. But let's talk about what's relevant to Hell Rising mod. In an interview with PP, he mentioned how he didn't like Saga due to its grindy nature, but I had to farm EXP for every single trial level. This was very counterintuitive, as the mod presented a solution to progressively overloading the unit rewards so the player had variety in their teams. And this is especially true with the Trial Titans, who will absolutely power creep your team when you unlock them. Not to mention that they are completely broken when fully upgraded. Maybe this is a skill issue, but due to the intensity, I just felt like I couldn't attempt the trials without fully upgrading my Titans. The highlight of the mod for me was the late stage of the main campaign and the extra purple stages. The problem though is there were some terrible level designs. One big culprit for this was the big magic units, who can snipe you across the map, including on level 7 where they spawn trap you if you get unlucky. What frustrates me most is that the purple levels actually use these guys in a good way, because they're not exactly hard hitting, they're just disruptive. I guess what I'm supposed to say is I simply faced them far too early in the game. In late stage, I'm better prepared for them. Another gripe to fix is the hero self-heal. I completely understand the decision to make it more expensive so that you have to use it at the right time at the right place, but 100 mana is simply too much. Oftentimes I have to spend an awkward amount of time waiting for the perfect moment to use it. Maybe if it costed something like 80, you could get the best of both worlds with the high risk, high reward spell casting, whilst you use the 80 mana hero heal. The other gripes are purely minor, such as hating on how certain upgrades are structured, and items not exactly doing what they say they would. But PP had to learn from the best. The Hell Rising mod is a product of one man's idea to innovate, to get inspired, and to be educated by the community's fine art. I don't know when the next update for this mod will be released, but Untitled Polemo has one feature that will guarantee his success: curiosity. In a very poorly worded question asking him about certain features which he may not want to repeat in other projects, he gave me a fantastic answer. It is not my place to call out others for their blunders, as I think doing so will limit your growth, because you think you know everything. Though of course there is always things that can be improved on, and that's what I strive for. This is the type of mentality that sums up the Epic War community. Zerny, Lulan, Giga and more all had to give their consumer exactly what they wanted. Even if that meant thinking outside of the box and listening to criticisms on a project that they poured their soul into. They needed to release unpolished products so that the player can test it and see what they thought. It is no wonder that the mods of this series are treated in such high regards, and definitely the reason why Last Milan wants to leave no stone unturned before the release of the Epic War remakes. PP joined this community expecting nothing, yet he has created something extraordinary for like-minded players to enjoy. The question is who is going to stand on the shoulders of these legends and create something that the community can only label as a masterpiece?